welcome back to a loved and revived series on Hungover Gaming. This is Overwatch Replay with your hosts Yvonne and
Julien. Welcome to the show. This show gives you all the tips and tricks you need to know to become a better Overwatch player. We've got another request of a coaching session. So yes, you, the viewer, can send in your video of a match that you played, hopefully a competitive match, to gaminghungover@gmail.com. Today we have the Lost Crusader, who sent in a PC match. It is a bronze match, however, which is great for us because we can coach that.
we're giving all of them bronze tips and tricks.
Yeah, we got the bronze tips and tricks. We got me out of bronze, so we can get you out of bronze. Let's do it, Yvonne.
A rising tide lifts all boats.
Yes.
Whatever.
Yes, it does.
Trickle-down economics, Ronald Reagan.
That's what
anyway,
he said.
So this week we have a video. This is Pharah on Junkertown. Lost Crusader will stick on Pharah for the entire match. So we see what their starting comp is. We've got 3 DPS-ish players. So we've got Pharah, Mei, Torbjorn. We've got 2 tanks and 1 healer. Now, if you watch Overwatch League and our juicy comps that we put out, for instance, on Wednesday, it's usually triple tank, 1 healer, and 2 DPS, which is run. So maybe this is augmented. This is okay. My one starting thing to say is that Junkertown Point A is a very open map.
Yes, super open.
With a lot of vantage points and a lot of coverage of the air. So it's very difficult to continue playing Pharah on this Point A.
Yeah.
I think.
Luckily for Lost Crusader, though, however, if I may spoil, this Point A goes pretty quickly for his team, as Torbjorn's turret ends up cleaning up a little bit. But I must. It's also good to note you have to pay attention to your healing options here on your team. So, I mean, if you look at the healer, we've got Moira. Moira has a very difficult time healing Pharah, as we'll see throughout this match, and that's just a general fact. So if you're going to have a single healer that's Moira, maybe you should consider not playing Pharah,
Yeah,
or knowing exactly where the health packs are, because you're not going to get much healing from your Moira. It's just how it's going to be.
So, without further ado, let's start rolling in the match.
Yeah.
And I've memorized all the
torture.
shortcut keys, so it'll be even easier this time.
Thank God.
Yeah, I know.
Hey,
so first off,
what? Sorry.
we've got here, we see in the back, we've got a soldier over here in the back. I think it's hard to tell.
Yeah, the bit rate's a little low, but that's totally fine. It is a soldier on the right, I believe, and then I think the Ana is in the back on the bottom.
The Ana's below on this bridge,
Yep.
and up here is
A character.
a Genji, I think.
I don't think
it
they have a
is.
Genji. There's a lot of squishy characters
Diva.
playing around.
Yeah. In any case, right off the bat, it might be Torb. Actually.
Yeah.
Right off the bat, you notice that they have an Ana and a soldier at least, and you're Pharah.
Yeah.
And not only that, if we look at your positioning, when you come right out the gate, you go straight up into the air, overview of the whole map. Now this is great for your own vantage point. This is really bad in terms of you getting hit. If you're going to advance, especially out of bronze, into silver, gold, and even into plat, this is going to be a much more difficult position for the Pharah to be in. This opening salvo, they're ready for you to come out, and if you're just hanging in the air here, no abilities or anything, there's going to be a lot of difficulty to survive this, especially as you rise in ranks. What I would think to do on Pharah is come out the right door and use the buildings as cover when you're going through and scouting. Hit scan works really well against Pharah when she's stuck out in the open. If this soldier turns and focuses on you, you can go down, especially when you're not getting a lot of healing.
Yeah, for instance, obviously you'll definitely notice this, and I think this is a really good way to learn. You're going to get punished for movements like this in the game, as you start rising the ranks. As you start rising the ranks, you'll see Widowmaker play go up, and we'll see, and then we can talk about this later. But once you go through the door, you could get sniped by a Widowmaker, for instance. Widowmaker is really powerful on this map. I know this is bronze, so not every Widowmaker is going to be very good. In fact, probably none of them will be, and that can only aid you when you're playing against the Widowmaker, but for instance, that could be a problem for you in the future.
Yeah. So, you see, they did have a Genji. I told you it was...
Oh, they did have... Alright. I think he switches off, because I don't remember seeing much.
He does switch off. But this Ana is still causing the problems. Now, the one good thing of having the Ana versus Pharah is that the enemy Ana is then not focused on doing healing for her team.
Yeah.
She's wondering about where you are in the sky. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, she's pressuring you to play more conservatively generally. So, in the reverse position, right? If you're playing Ana versus a Pharah, it's not going to be your job to kill, but it's going to be your job to land a couple shots, make sure that Pharah knows your presence is there, and to force the Pharah to play more conservatively.
Yeah.
Vice versa, when you're playing Pharah against an Ana, if she's landing shots on you, if she's focusing you, make sure that you do play more conservatively.
And Yvonne, you play a lot of Pharah, or at least way more than I do. If you were to play Pharah on this map, where would you be positioning yourself right now?
I would position myself, depending on where my team was, obviously. I'd position myself towards the right side of the map. There's a lot of high ground, or on the left side, there's that big silo.
Yeah.
You can use that silo to peek out from behind and use it kind of as cover. That is especially good if the enemy DPS is a lot of hit scan that's landing shots, and you need to use cover while it's trying to get through, or attacking a Torbjorn turret or something that's in the distance, if that's available to you. Using that silo that's on the left-hand side, if we can see it probably when we come out here. There. This silo, this grain silo, I'd position being a little off the map on that left-hand side, or playing the right-hand side behind those buildings, or these left-hand side buildings. In general, you want with Pharah to use as much of the vertical terrain cover as you can. Yep. You'll see in Overwatch League, for instance, on Eichenwald, there's that big clock tower on point A. They always play around that clock tower because it provides a lot of cover to dart out from. On Route 66, that first corner wall, you can use that to go left and right if you're on defense and playing Pharah, to kind of give you cover and then come out, shoot your rockets, come back in, and making sure that even if the enemy does have hit scan, it's not an easy shot.
Yeah, I'm the one thing I would think of is for this map in particular, you don't really want to go too far above the level of these houses. I think that puts you in a very vulnerable spot, and you sort of want to be peeking around them, maybe on the side or above them, and just launching a couple rockets over. Hopefully you can land some of them and just get some pokes, and that'll help you build up your ult, and then you can start flanking if you need to ult or put yourself in a more aggressive position because you have your ultimate.
So here we see that Lost Crusader has taken down the Ana, giving a little bit more space. And the one battle that is perfect for Pharah is Pharah versus Junkrat.
Yeah.
Junkrat, if you can keep high enough, will never be able to touch you. And, like for instance here, lands a perfectly great rocket onto Junkrat in order to set this up. Boom.
That's a good one.
And the follow.
Yep.
It's all good. Well, the Torbjorn turret takes care, but if the Torbjorn turret wasn't there. Now here we've got an interesting conundrum, because we've got a soldier over here.
Yep.
Playing against a soldier as Pharah is difficult, to say the least, especially if that soldier has aim. One of the things that I might recommend is using the concussive blast to dive from a position in which the soldier doesn't see you, and landing some of those shots in a little bit closer range. Because the soldier, if he has a little bit better tracking can kill you in the mid-range and probably in the long-range fight too, because it takes your rockets a while to land.
Yeah.
But in the close-range fight, it's much harder for a soldier to land his shots rather than you landing that splash damage from the rockets.
Right.
So use the concussive blast to blast yourself into a position that's close to him, and barrage him with a couple rockets. The one thing that you don't want to do is engage with him when he's in the biotic field.
Definitely not. And soldier, I believe you would have to, if you didn't get direct hits on your rockets, I believe you have to land 3 rockets. And as for him, if he's lucky enough to land a helix rocket, you're going down real fast. But that's probably not likely. So he can take you out faster than you can take him out on average. So it's tough to fight soldier. But right. So
for instance, here you see soldier has dropped his biotic field. If I'm Pharah, and in this case it worked out because the soldier doesn't have super great aim or sense of what's going on.
Yeah.
But again, you don't want to get comfortable playing things that are good for your elo. You want to get comfortable playing things that are good for basically any elo, or at least, with the guess that if you have rock solid game sense and mechanics, then you can use whatever tactics you're using at any elo that you get into, any SR range that you get into. Here, you're engaging a soldier that's in his biotic field. You're at a mid-range, so you're at the disadvantage because he's got healing that he can cancel out your rockets from splash damage unless you land a couple direct hits. You're not going to take him down, and you're already at a disadvantage because your health is taken down.
Yeah.
You also have almost no support here. So he lands one shot, but you disengage there, so that's good.
Yes, that was the right play to make. Definitely disengage. Yep.
The other option there is to concussive blast him out of that field if you can hit him with a couple rockets there too. But at that range, just get out of there.
And something I noticed with this player's aim is that with Pharah, maybe I don't know. It's like I've noticed that a lot of your shots, you're tailing the person as opposed to leading them. And generally with Pharah, obviously she's a projectile character. Even though her rockets go in a straight line, you definitely want to have some sense of where your opponent is going to move, because your rockets take a certain amount of time to get to that area and explode. So if you're shooting behind them already, if you have your crosshairs behind the character and you know soldier is not going to run onto the point right now, he's running back to get to health and safety. So you need to put your crosshairs in front of him, launch rockets, and then hopefully if you have it aimed correctly, it'll get a direct hit possibly. So you'll be doing more damage. Yeah.
Exactly. So here I would aim about halfway between where the soldier is and that entrance to go back towards spawn is. That's where I would be aiming. So you're aiming behind here, and the second rocket is also aiming on top of him. Again, Pharah's a projectile character, not a head scan, so it's not going to directly hit. Good points. I did notice that a lot of the times. So here, for the most part, you're cleaning up. These are good team fights. This is a pretty lucky shot here onto that Junkrat.
That was Junkrat. I thought that was Soldier. How did he get up there?
So here, look at where your health is. You're not getting healing. There's a Reaper coming to the point. You're not on the ground. You've got a little time. Know where the health packs are at all times.
Yeah.
On all maps. So here on Junkertown, you've got big health pack that's up to the right. Again, that's in a small confined space. Probably not the health pack that you want to get as Pharah if you're so close to where the enemy is engaging. You can drop out. There's a health pack back to your left. There's a health pack opposite on the other side, which isn't the big health pack. It's another mini health pack. But either way, going to those, retreating a little bit because Pharah has a decent amount of mobility to move back around that map with that concussive blast to launch you forward in X, Y, or Z direction. So know where your health packs are, and engaging at 61 health when you've got time to go around and do different things, that won't let you die here versus that auto.
Yeah. Or at least you would have had a better chance of living.
Right. And this soldier is engaging one-on-one for no purpose because he's not even on the cart. And
a good thing that Pharah can do is when when you guys have won a team fight and the enemy team is coming back on to contest your pushing the payload, is to know where they're going to be coming from and just start. You do this at the end of the game pretty well, in the third or at the end of this push, the point 3, or at least on defense, I think. But just knowing where they're coming from, particularly in this map, there are 2 or 3 options they could come from, and just spamming that entrance. You can do that with Pharah, and you can be relatively safe in that situation. So it's a pretty good idea.
Yes.
Yes.
So the other thing that I would say, you don't have to use every single ability when you're coming out of spawn like this. Hitting the concussive blast against the ground and then your rocket jump at the same time doesn't give a huge advantage, especially if you're going to go in and engage in here. If you had this concussive blast, you could knock that diva away.
Can diva defense matrix the concussive blast?
Yes.
Okay.
The other thing is that you do well, Lost Crusaders, you manage your jetpack and your shift jump.
Definitely, yeah. I noticed that. That was really good play.
So you could especially see that in the Venture 2.8. What Lost Crusader is doing is using the shift to get that high jump, and then using tapping the spacebar or the right click to make sure that the jetpack isn't getting burned down all the way, but gets burned down, comes back up. You can actually gain height by doing that cycle over time. So that is really well managed throughout the fight. Throughout the entire fight.
Yeah, you don't want to just hold it down the whole time. That's not a good idea.
Yep, and this is actually pretty good
All
aim to make sure that diva goes down. You know where to engage, where not to engage, so you drop out of that fight. That's actually pretty good game sense there, because engaging with that mini diva is probably not the best for your Pharah at that moment. You're doing good here in terms of knowing where the enemy is going to be setting up, just like Julien was talking about earlier. This is that thing where engaging with less health, good move back to that.
So let's talk a little bit about priorities with Pharah. Which targets on the team should Pharah really be going for?
My priority as Pharah is generally kill the thing that can kill me first.
Yeah, definitely.
And then deal with healers second and tanks.
So
third.
You should be prioritizing like a McCree or a soldier, just hit scan characters, even a Widowmaker when you run into one. This soldier I think you missed a shot. I mean, feels bad, man. You would have gotten him there, and then maybe there wouldn't be so much chaos there. But definitely McCree and soldier, and then prioritize the healers, which I think you do pretty well. There was one point where you...
Any character that's out of position is good for Pharah
definitely,
to hit. She also has a unique ability to monitor the entire battlefield from above.
Yeah.
And she doesn't necessarily peel for her own backline, but she can send rockets towards that backline to deal with anybody that's flanking.
Yeah.
This is an interesting one for me, in terms of
he's using his ultimate, right? I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
So soldier, in a second here, will start to use his ultimate. You'll hear the call out. So Mei goes down. You know where this soldier. You think you know where this soldier is coming out, and now the soldier is coming out above. If I'm soldier,
just turn.
I would have turned here.
He's so focused on the diva, or
the soldier is focused on the payload,
right,
and attempting to have the game-saving ult, but everybody's behind that Reinhardt shield. That's a really bad ult to fire at that Reinhardt shield. And even when everybody's turning, now he's focused on where the diva is, because he's forgotten how to play the game, basically.
Yes.
Or he never learned at all. So the good thing is that you're, in your terms of your positioning, you're hiding from where that diva bomb is, you're landing your rockets. So in general, that's pretty good. The one thing that I would say in terms of managing ults, ult management, I don't understand the point of this ult.
Right.
You've got 3 or 4 people here. You've already just hit the checkpoint. The D.Va bomb has just gone off, so you can demech her, but there's no real point to demeching her with the ult at this point. She doesn't have an ult that can be used. You're going to be pushing on this point, and it won't start immediately. In terms of the ult economy, this isn't where I'd use it. Now, I understand that you've been holding your ult for a long time, so you want to use it, and you do get the D.Va kill and the demech. But in the long run of this fight, it's not really doing much, because you're still not going to be pushing this cart.
And not to mention,
2,
D.Va
1.
is actually a pretty bad target for your ult. She can cancel out about half of your ult with her defense matrix, and she can also opt to, if she's skilled enough and has the reaction time, she can just fly directly at you, and you'll end up killing yourself. So that could have been a complete waste of your ult. Right there, if that D.Va had reacted at all. But you got the kill, so I mean, fine.
Yeah, but it's not a good
no, it's not a good practice, right?
Yeah.
So
the other thing is, now you're engaging into a fight with less than half health. Yes. You've had enough time. Rather than engaging with that D.Va there, perhaps you go back to spawn to make sure that you get that full health, because the spawn is right there. Mm-hmm. Or you hit the D.Va a few times, drop down to where the cart is. As that cart is waiting to move through to the next spot, the cart will give you at least some passive healing that you can use to return to some healed up spaces. Because I noticed that you're doing a lot of engagement with no heals. The things that you're doing well, a lot of the times on the comms you're doing the group up with me, which is great. You're managing your jump really well, and you do know kind of what's going on with your team at a time. But the things that I would really recommend: practice your rocket shots, and
but that's something you can practice, which is good.
Yeah. Make sure that you're engaging with the full amount of health that you can, especially when you're in between breaks of fights. Here it's good to avoid this Moira ult. I like that you're using the concussive blast to knock away the Mei when she's freezing your teammates. That's a pretty heads up play.
But so, Mei can freeze even faster now, so it might not be fast enough. I didn't know.
But it's even better for not hitting that headshot with the follow-up.
Yeah.
So we saw here, I think that Pharah has a lot of use here, using that middle pillar as cover, as we said before. But in general, I don't think Pharah is super great on this point, because there is a lot of built-in verticality for the enemy team, which has a soldier and an Ana for hit scan, plus a D.Va that is supposed to be able to handle the Pharah.
Yeah, I think luckily for him, not many of the enemy team decides to take the high ground at all. I think you're relatively uncontested this up here, just in general, fighting this particular team. If you were up against a different team, they might have a Widowmaker. Widowmaker's pretty decent on this whole entire map, and their soldier would be on the high ground. They might have a McCree, because you are actually you're dealing a lot of damage, and I'm sure they're already pissed off. So you might end up getting their team to counter you entirely. So that's something you have to be worried about as a Pharah player. So they might switch to McCree and have a second hit scan, and then he would take the high ground. So that could be pretty scary for you.
Exactly. The next thing is the enemy soldier has again popped ult.
Yeah.
There is no need to engage him when he's popping the ult.
Yeah, let it run out.
You've got a lot of cover, just let it run out. Even if you're trying to engage him, his ability to hit you is way higher in terms of chances than your ability to hit him.
Yeah, he will land all his shots.
Yes, what you're doing here is good. You're using this middle pillar as cover. Yep. The problem is you're not getting healing.
That's not necessarily his fault, but it's still something to consider, because it's your team, and you need the healing.
The team composition isn't great for healing the Pharah.
Yes.
So yeah, as much as you're making those call-outs, if this Moira isn't really game sense focused, again, in bronze, a lot of people have a broken mechanic, a broken game sense, a broken something other, or it's underdeveloped. So
the best thing you could do if you really need healing, and you're not near a health pack, and you don't know where the health pack is go in front of your healer. I saw you were calling out, but you were behind the healer. The healer doesn't know where you are to begin with, especially if you're behind them. So just land in front of them, and they will hopefully heal you.
Yeah, those rockets are much better in the overall. That was a good saving of the concussive blast to make sure you could get out of trouble.
Yep.
I might have used this Pharah ult that you've had.
No, it's not necessarily a bad idea. He could have gotten 3 kills, possibly, but may end up stopping it, which was good on the
The one thing I would do, you see that they're so not focused on what's coming above you.
Yeah.
What's coming above them. I would attempt to get closer to this side.
Definitely.
And send it down from behind them. So making anybody that gets confused as to where the attack is coming from, especially if the point is coming forward, you're running towards that point because you have to save it. Obviously, that's in terms of the mechanics. Use this ramp, go along it, hug this wall so they can't see you as you come out. Hug this wall, go out there, and then turn and fire down. It might be a higher priority to get somebody like this Mei rather than this D.Va.
Yeah. But D.Va goes down pretty quickly, but she uses her ult, so
she's got her mech back. And it doesn't matter in the long run because your team takes the point.
Yeah.
But again, just as an idea,
small optimization.
Hug those upper ceiling walls around the point so that you're not open to fire from both sides.
Exactly. And you can still do the same amount of damage to enemies coming in from below you, and you're safer. You're essentially way safer. You're going to take way less damage. Not that you took much damage in that fight to begin with. And it's just positioning is really key in this game, especially for a character like Pharah. She can be caught in the open and then immediately killed if you know the enemy team can aim. So it's something to think about.
Here, there's a lot of things going wrong. This team is so far forward. It's kind of ridiculous how far forward this team is. I don't think this is advantageous for anybody.
It's bronze.
Yeah. So here, what you're doing is you're standing in the middle, wide open, shooting at the only exits that are available.
Yeah.
You can do the exact same thing that you're doing here from the silo or from behind this building.
Yes.
And you have cover in between.
And I think you get shot, and so you're at half health here. You wouldn't have taken that shot if you were on the right side by the silo.
And there you go. They've switched
Killed
to
by the
a
McCree, right?
And a Torbjorn, 2 people who have hit scan ability to take you down. And your team now has 4 DPS and 1 tank, so that's also going to work out soon.
So good switch on the enemy team to go to McCree. This is a scary play, but also yeah.
So coming out here, you know that the enemy team has a Torbjorn. You could have checked by this point. You know where that Torbjorn turret is going to be. You're going up against a Torbjorn turret and a McCree, and you're going straight up into the air.
And the turret's behind a shield.
Yeah. This is...
So you took a lot of damage, needless to say.
And there you go down. If that health pack isn't there and the Moira didn't turn around and see you, just don't leave.
Can we go back to the beginning of that play? His team is all alive, right? Are they on the... I just want to know if he should have even engaged right now. Okay, so Reinhardt's going out.
You shouldn't engage right now. That Reinhardt is you've got 3 people versus their probably 4 or 5.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, right. So this is a huge thing that a lot of people, in every rank do. It's called trickling in, right? So that's exactly what's happening here. You're going in one by one with no team strategy. Again, this is not necessarily your fault. It's just a team composition thing. No team strategy, no grouping up, and they have no idea. We're just going in to try to get kills here. So that's not really going to work out, especially if the team has a turret set up on the point behind a shield. So it's going to
if you want to contest on Junkertown A,
yeah,
and your team has died,
lay it on them.
You can
lay it on
contest
them.
right before the best place to contest if your team hasn't been able to hold any of the corners is just before it hits that point. Because you can drop down from on top. You've got high ground for better shot aim. You also have the ability to have, it's basically the point at which the spawn advantage of attackers is neutralized the most.
Yeah.
So just before that point hits just before the card hits point A, drop down, attack it. You need your team to group up for that to happen. But that's the best place if you want to recontest and you haven't hit any of those corners. You haven't re-engaged with. The best place to re-engage is right before the card hits.
And okay, yeah, and you had a lot of time to do it too. So you see your team is already coming back from this fight, so you could have grouped up and done it. I know it's difficult when your team is not working together. The best thing you could have done there, if besides going on the comms and telling people to group up, maybe not in an aggressive way, not saying you did, is to essentially just wait right before the opening. Wait right before. Just stand still right there while you're in cover. That if your teammates going in and they see you just waiting, they're way more likely to wait with you than they are to just go in on the point by themselves. So that's something that you might want to keep in mind. If you want people to group up, just tell people to group up and wait in front of the chokehold that you want to, in cover, of course, that you want people to group up at. I think it's a good idea.
Keeping your head on a swivel for anything.
Yes, of course.
This is one point that I want to make for engaging with the Moira. If you're engaging with the Moira and she's going to do her blink, know how this Moira plays to guess where the Moira is going to come out.
Yeah.
It's just like the same way with Tracer, where you're going to have to know how a Tracer moves in order to understand where she's going to blink to better engage with in terms of predictive nature. Know how this Moira is playing. Notice this Moira is very aggressive. She's pushed out from where her team is, and the Moira is engaging in a one-on-one fight. If she's disappeared from here, you know that your teammate is going to be the next target. The Moira's effective range of her teleport is going from basically where she is to basically the bottom of those steps. If she's going to be an aggressive Moira, that's where she's going to pop out. If she's not aggressive, she's going to go down and around back to join her team. But if you're trying to defend your player, attack there. So you could have already had predictive splash damage onto this Moira to start with.
Yep. Luckily, you guys end up picking up that kill, and now we have the team coming out with the turret, still on the point. Good thing you went back to cover, but now you've sort of isolated yourself over here. I think maybe we could have moved back a little bit. Obviously, now it's too late, but we could have moved back after we get this Moira kill and just understand what's happening right now with the payload, right?
So on the payload right now is a Molten Cord Torbjorn turret.
Yeah.
It's going to take you out. You've got a Moira here that's healing you up, but essentially you're not going to win this fight. This is a good use of cover up in the air, but you've already also lost exactly where you're going.
That McCree should have killed you.
So yeah, so that Torbjorn turret was basically one shot on you. Don't go back to engaging on the point there. So rather than engaging with that McCree or anything, what you've done here, you've moved this way. There's a little hole that's just below where you are. Go through that, re-engage on the other side.
And there's also a health pack in there too, I think.
Yeah. Which all would be better than attempting to re-engage. Here you get very lucky this McCree doesn't hit you, and that Moira's orb was able to kill that McCree. So they take point B. think, pretty
Yeah.
easily. Because the team is trickling in. There's no coordination. There's no group team fights. The point will be taken shortly.
But honestly, that's something you're gonna have to deal with the entire time you play this game. So it's just the nature of playing with random people.
Yep. So, what we've seen now, you've engaged really well, or at least fairly well. You've engaged with Pharah on
Fairly
attack.
well.
Fairly well.
Huh?
But here's the thing: between between spawn and point A, you were able basically to get one ult. Then you used one ult from between point A and the end of the map. So you were only able to get one ult charge for 2 points.
Right.
Here, it's been 2 points, and you haven't been able to get one ult charge. What that tells me is you're not doing enough damage, and you're dying too quickly. Those are 2 signs that you needed to have swapped out this character a long time ago, or your team isn't grouping up well. The reason that you haven't gotten your first ult on this map is because you're facing a McCree and a Torbjorn turret and a Moira who can deal some damage to you too.
By yourself.
And that Torbjorn turret
part.
is shielded behind an Orisa shield,
Yep.
which I haven't seen you send rockets at the entire time. So, you're not breaking the shield, you're not hitting what's behind the shield. What's behind the shield is hitting you the entire time. So as much as I appreciate that you want us to analyze your fair play, one of my biggest things about this point of this entire defense is don't play Pharah here. This isn't it. If you want a splash damage character that's good against a like that turret formation, Junkrat will break that shield, and his Riptire, if you can maneuver it so that it's not exposed to turret fire that often, can help to break it down. Can break down that turret shield, and the shield, and any character that's on.
And he can do it from behind cover.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So here, there's trades-offs every which way. Your team is killing and getting killed.
Right. What Yvonne is trying to say is that we
don't assume.
Okay, sorry. What I think Yvonne is trying to say is that it's great to be able to play one character efficiently, but you need to. And I'm not saying you can't. I'm sure you're pretty good with a lot of characters, but it's definitely very valuable in Overwatch as the game is designed this way in order to, in your practice to be able to play multiple characters. It's and also I think a really key thing to know is to when to switch off the character. Because I mean, right now you have your ult built up. It doesn't make sense to switch off, I don't think, right now. But and especially your ult, you can get a nice kill on everything right now if you position yourself correctly, which I believe is what happens.
So the other thing is, you could have switched off of Pharah and then switched back onto Pharah for this point if you thought that Pharah is advantageous in this circular pattern. And you can always come back to her. So what happens here, this Reinhardt has his ult, he's waiting for people, he's like, okay, time's up. So he's going to go charge out, and he's going to drop his hand.
That's his Reinhardt.
Yeah,
okay.
Here, the allied Reinhardt.
Okay.
So the hammer goes down, gets a kill, and rather than doubling down on being able to do that damage because the team isn't grouped up, it's not a team fight, the Lost Crusaders is dealing with the Junkrat above.
It's true. At least
paired up with the
4
D.Va
people.
at least. But yeah. So the rest of the team was able to engage in that fight.
And this is
landing the rockets.
Another example of aim here. We're trying to hit a large cow robot character, and that doesn't move very much, especially when she's holding down left click. And you're just, I mean, maybe it was sort of a flustered type situation. You wanted to get a kill, and I understand. I screw up my aim all the time. But again, it's just, take a second, cool down, and just focus on your aim a little bit, and you would have landed all those shots, because she was not moving at all.
Alright, so here...
Wait, and also there was another... Sorry.
No, go ahead.
You're also engaging a Pharah v Pharah. Very difficult thing to do. You launch 4 rockets at her, and instead of launching 4 rockets on someone that was on the ground that could have been easily hit, I think I mean, you can probably attest better than I can. I think it's a very difficult fight. I personally would not engage another Pharah unless I knew I could land a shot, unless she was just on the ground, because then you're not doing your job, which is to do splash damage. So you launch 4 rockets into the void, essentially. So it's a thing to think about when you come across an enemy Pharah.
Yeah.
Right.
They're practicing your aim with Pharah. Go into like the training ground, find like and practice your aim that way. Those bots that are moving around, so that you figure out how to lead a character, things like that. Practicing how to kill an enemy Pharah is much more difficult. You basically have to have a friend that goes into a training match with you, and you're
I'm
fighting
surprised
each other.
there's no aerial things in the training ground. They should have those.
It is a lack of foresight, I think. We should write into Blizzard.
God damn it, Blizzard.
The other thing is, it's really hard to hit a Pharah in a Pharah v Pharah
Even the
fight.
pros can't do it, so...
Yeah. What I would recommend, wait for a Pharah to get close to a edge. Hit that edge so the splash damage hits her.
Yes, yeah.
Aim for where you think Pharah's rocket jump will stall out. Aim for that spot, because she slows down and moves the least there. Make your movement as erratic as possible. Drop down heights. Moving left and right.
Zigzag.
Especially if you're just tilting lazily to the right. You're presenting a much easier target. Drop down in height a little bit more than you usually would. Do other things to avoid getting hit by a rocket. And the number one way to kill an enemy Pharah when you're playing Pharah, hit Q.
It's surprising.
You get fairly close, hit Q, you kill her very quickly, and then you turn to kill anything else that's left on the ground. It is A, style points. B, it's the most guaranteed way to do damage to an object that's in the air. And 3, it just makes you feel good, because you're killing the character, the enemy that switched to a character that you are playing. So here you're going to engage with the enemy team. Again, using this middle platform as the way to go.
Good ult.
This is an excellent ult. This is exactly the kind of ult that
you turn after you killed everything just in time, because I think you might have killed yourself from the propeller thing, the moving platform. He was kind of close to that. I don't know how close he was to that. Possibly.
Yeah, you definitely got some splash damage to you from that, or the McCree hit you, but yeah, that was a great ult. You got him behind the shield, did everything that was supposed to be done.
Yep. Would have been.
And the main thing that you're doing here is preventing the Torbjorn from setting up, and that's really good.
Yeah, this is what I was saying earlier. This is exactly the point that I was trying to refer to. You were doing a good job there, just spamming the entrances. That was the McCree, right? Okay, so the Pharah probably would have missed the shot on you. I'm not gonna lie. And again, this is where it comes to priorities. You don't want to prioritize that Pharah. You want to prioritize this McCree he's killed you 1 or 2 times recently, and you want to prioritize Soldier, McCree.
He's been the most consistent damage onto you, other than a Torbjorn turret, but Torbjorn isn't being allowed to set up his turret.
Which is good, right.
So the one thing, again, for those paying attention, if you're Torbjorn and your turret goes down and the enemy has been, and you have been unable to set up your turret, switch off of Torbjorn, you're useless.
Yeah, I mean, Torbjorn, that was a really good
excellent kill. Yeah.
I assume you have decent headphones. Which is another thing to consider when, of your opponent. Again, McCree takes you out.
This is another example of not using your positioning to your advantage. You're getting to McCree's killing ground, that mid-range shot, rather than getting behind the pillar, floating in and out from behind that pillar, where it's a little bit more unpredictable how your rockets are coming down and where you're going to be.
Speaking of good headphones, though, your enemy can hear you when you're hovering. So that's something to consider when you were coming around to get that sweet ult where you killed everything. If your enemy, I mean, bronze play, let's be honest, they're probably not going to react to you coming behind them, but they definitely can hear you. So you really want to get really high above them and then just let yourself drop and immediately press Q at the right point. So that's something that I think is a really good technique to practice when you're using your ult, when you're flanking to use your ult, for instance, and because headphones are getting real good nowadays, so they're going to hear you. Right.
Yeah, hit control a bunch. Don't keep it pressed down, but pop it on and off.
Yeah.
So you're crouching on the right.
Oh, crouching too.
So here, this what we're seeing here, this technique, minus the rocket jump and plus the right click, that's the dive maneuver to get close to a hit scan player. So you do that from behind cover and surprise the enemy, and you're on top of them. Now you can land your shots at closer range that is easier for you to do and more damage for you than it is for them. You also use this to your advantage to target that Torbjorn. That's awesome.
Yeah, these are good
target
point.
the people that are going to hit you first. But why, on God's green earth, are you going down into this area? You are going to hurt yourself if you get too close to your rockets.
And
Stick
you
on
have full
this main platform.
full fuel, I think, right?
Yeah, you do.
Okay.
Don't go forward. Stick where you are. Hover a little bit around here. You see where everybody that can kill you is. You've got your turret, or the enemy turret. You've got your turret here. You've got the enemy Torbjorn, or something.
McCree.
You've got the enemy McCree.
Yeah. That's definitely
These
Torbjorn
are
down there too.
The Anna here. These are the three characters that you have to worry about. Stay above them and out of their vision.
Yeah.
There's no need to get engaged here. You got down to 48 health. It would have been super easy for you to have gotten down to 0 health.
And luckily your team actually ends up, and you killed one of them definitely, but luckily Torbjorn's turret takes out the other two pretty much.
So here, remember what I was talking about? You see the jump jet. Now she's at the height of her jump. This is exactly where you can engage with that.
Yeah, that was a good idea to engage with the Pharah. I think engaging with the Pharah, especially when when she's the only one out there, she's out of position. You're really good at doing that. Like Yvonne said earlier, Pharah is perfect for taking out characters that are incredibly out of position. That's what their Pharah was, and you did a good job.
Again, when we're talking about not engaging the enemy Pharah, that doesn't mean ignore where she is.
Yeah.
It means that you need to know where she is and if she's shooting rockets at you, so you can make your maneuvering erratic compared to what her aim is, but also know where you're aiming to.
Yeah.
So in the span that it took you to get in, like in a third of the time that it took you to get one ult,
Yeah.
it took you to get the second ult. So that means that you could have been Pharah for this portion, for point B to where you are right now, rather than being Pharah that entire time and never getting that. Yeah, so engage with Pharah if she, know where she is even if you're not engaging with her. This is a decent ult.
Could have been closer, I think.
Yeah.
Right. Pharah's ult spreads out a lot as a cone of damage, and you really want to be within a certain range to maximize the damage and end up killing this Roadhog you would have killed, which would have been a huge kill. You would have taken out both tanks, and then this push would have been over immediately.
So now they've got Torbjorn, Soldier, and McCree,
crosshairs,
and that Roadhog who's able to hook you.
They hate you is basically the situation
so
going on right
now. So they switched
now.
off Pharah to hit the Soldier, to get the Soldier to deal with you.
Yeah.
This is where I would say maybe not the greatest pair.
Yeah.
With Pharah. As you get into higher tiers, that's where you're going to have to deal with people with better aim. The Moira also, if she looks up with her ult, can kill you. That's what I often do with the Moira ult if I don't need to heal anybody. I focus it on aerial characters like Pharah.
You have your shit, but overall, this whole play, I think, was fairly well done. I think positioning-wise on that whole play to end the game was not bad. I think that was really good. Ended up getting some key kills, and the Moira could have killed you there, but she was ulting and she was by herself. So honestly, your team would have taken her out anyways. So I think pretty good. Look, you have more. Sorry.
No. I mean, you go ahead.
I wanna state we don't want to come off as overly negative. This is really good for everyone. I think that it's a brave thing you've done, sending in, and again, Captain Video last week, super brave thing to do. Send in your footage for all of the internet to see. I mean, it's not like we get that many viewers, but it's a brave thing to do, and it shows that you're trying to get better. And I think that's really an awesome thing. So thank you so much for sending in the video.
Yeah, I think the pros of your Pharah play.
Yeah.
Before we get into Pharah, let's say in general, you're doing fairly decent on the comms when you're not talking over the comms. So you're calling for the group up a bunch. I saw you're using the comms to call for the healing. You might be doing it a little too much where it gets annoying, but I mean, if you're not getting the healing, you're not getting the healing.
Yeah.
Third, your aim is fair, not great. Your ult for Pharah, your aim is fair, not great, but it's getting to where you need it to be. Mm-hmm. Your knowledge of where to do ults is about 50-50. Your ult targets are tanks, which is great, or the point, which is great, but the wrong tank. And yeah, I wouldn't focus on D.Va as an ult target. That's just a scary one to do for Pharah. You manage your rocket boost really well.
Yeah.
It's really well done. But your positioning while rocket boosting can use some adjustment. Just being up in the air isn't always an advantage, especially as you go higher with people who have better aim. And things to work on: positioning, mechanics of shooting, and knowing when to play a character that is like Pharah. Pharah is more of a specialty character than a every map kind of character. She doesn't do well with a lot of open space and a lot of ability for people to hit her without her having cover.
Yeah, she's not a character that fits on every team also. I mean, for your team particularly, you obviously didn't get any healing at all. If you had a Zenyatta or a Mercy, I think this team, for you particularly, would have worked out way better in your favor. You would have gotten healing, and you never would have really, if the Mercy and Zenyatta were on top of healing you, wouldn't really have felt any pressure at all, honestly, I think.
Yeah. In general, thank you very much again. I echo a lot of Julien's sentiments. It's brave, and I appreciate it, and we love doing this kind of coaching things. We did this for ourselves a lot of the time.
Yeah. I'm glad we're finally getting people to send in their videos. That's really awesome. Thank you so much, guys.
We really, really, really appreciate it. Again, we're not the best Overwatch players. We watch a lot of Overwatch League.
Too much.
We've improved a lot based on that. Our mechanics aren't the best, which is also why we are not advancing as high.
Yeah.
So we have a little bit more improved game sense and how game flow works, thanks to really studying and analyzing Overwatch League. So we appreciate that you guys are trusting us to coach you through it. So thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. See you next week. Bye.
Bye.